Another fabulous episode of the Jamal and Joe show. If it's not obvious, I'm Jamal.
I'm Joe.
And that's Joe. And we are here to entertain, and we are here to have a little bit of fun, and we're going to tell the truth and tell a few stories. And we got some special stuff and we got some special stuff tonight. And
you want to just pick up right where we left off last time? I'm sure folks
I mean,
dying to know. I know I am, man. I mean,
yeah. I mean, let me get this light right. Let me get the hot light on me since we're going to be doing some confessions tonight. So
nice. Let me get comfy.
Yeah. So hey, everybody out there, before we get started, I want to encourage everybody who's watching this show on your little YouTube machine there to like, comment, and subscribe. What do they say? Mash that like button and all the other stuff. So if you like what you hear, even if you don't like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe to it. Like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to have a little fun. And for the next little while, we're going to talk about kind of what's going on. You know, there's only a couple little things in the headlines, right? Just a couple things going on right now.
Yeah, one or two.
But,
I know it. And before we get to, you know, all the goings-ons of today's world, I believe we left a bit of a cliffhanger last week.
Did we leave a cliffhanger last week?
I think so. It was such a good cliffhanger. It was a teaser for last week's episode. So damn, I'm ready to hear all about the escapades and tribulations of Jamal in Vegas, handcuffed to a goddamn fence.
All right, so let's start here. First of all, it was Reno.
Okay.
It was Reno, Vegas, same thing, right?
Kind of. I'm sure there's people somewhere there that would be quick to point out differences and why one is better than the other. And shout out to anybody there in the Reno, Tahoe / Vegas Area 51 area.
Well, here's the deal. I don't know if you know this or not, but I have over 150 first, second, and third cousins in the city of Las Vegas.
Wow.
There's a whole lot of Harveys down there.
All right. Just a bunch of gambling degenerates or what?
You know, I think when you're a local, you kind of get over the whole gambling thing. You know, a lot of them work in the casino industry. But when you live there, it's not that big a deal as the tourists that come in and kind of leave their money and go back home with their tail between their legs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And are you? I mean, you're a gambler, right?
I've been known to put a few chips on the table from time to time.
How's that panned out?
You know, I was in Las Vegas in 2017. Wait, no. It was either 2017 or 2018. I went down for a family reunion.
Okay.
And I met a whole lot of people that I had never met that, like, were my cousins. Well, you know, my dad had 14 brothers and sisters.
Yep. And I mean, he was back from the era, like my old man, when children were like farmhands.
Absolutely. You didn't hire anybody. You just had more kids.
Yeah. That was, you know, your good stock, right? I mean, that was the description of a good family was your good stock. Like you're here to go do some work, you know?
And then each of my dad's siblings all had minimum of 4 or 5 kids, and they all had 4 or 5 kids. So
right.
You know, after the war, when my dad, you know, left Mississippi to go to Germany to fight Nazis because it was safer than Mississippi, ended up in Oakland, and him and my
is that like where he came back? I bumped the hell out of my table, my lord. It's not earthquakes, folks. I am on the Pacific Rim, but that's just my knee. Did he just come back from the war to like California Is that like
Yeah.
where his ship just landed, kind of a thing?
Yeah, so a ship let him off in the Bay Area, and back then the black soldiers couldn't go to San Francisco; they had to go to Oakland. Whole nother story.
But that's part of the story. That is
Yeah,
the story. God dang it, my mic. That is the story.
yeah.
And I want to
So
hear. That's to me. I don't give a shit what anybody else wants to hear. I want to hear about that story because it's similar to what we've talked about, the red line rules. I mean, like I've learned more and more about how Oregon is kind of one of the more racist states of the union. It just is. I mean, the reason people ran out this way was to get away from everybody else. But it was all of my folks that were running out this way. And then anybody that got in the way on the way here, you just flatten them.
yeah.
But sorry, I digress. So your old man landed back from the war, which again, it just, as somebody newly disillusioned to my own country, the idea of patriotism to somebody that has been nothing but shat upon by his country, I have always marveled at that whole concept. And like you said, it was safer to go fight a war against Nazis than to stay in Mississippi
100%
as a black man.
Yeah.
And please continue.
Yeah. So I think I talked about this on one of the other shows. So he went to join the army, ended up in Germany, or going over. Everybody funneled into Germany. Ended up in Germany at the end of the war, and fought Nazis. My dad had cool stories about stepping through dead bodies, and
that was the one you shared. Yeah.
And so after that, his company ended up in Japan.
Okay.
After the war.
So this is after we just nuked Japan twice.
Yes, we nuked Japan, and we were handling some business over there. He ended up in Japan, or in the Pacific Theater, not specifically Japan, but in the Pacific Theater.
Okay.
And then after the war was over and they started sending people home, he was on a big ship coming home and landed in the Bay Area. And I think I mentioned this before. The funny thing was, as they were roll calling people to get off the ship, they called my dad's name, James Harvey. He comes off, and then the next thing they say is Ollie Harvey, which is my uncle, and he's like, and everybody everybody called him Mook. That was his name. Nobody ever called him Ollie. He was Mook.
Wow.
So then he
didn't even realize his own family was.
He turns and he looks, and there's his brother, right? And they go off the ship together, and they hadn't seen each other since they joined the army in Mississippi 5 years ago, right?
Man, that's some movie shit right there. I mean, that's wow.
So they get off the ship in Oakland, and
with his brother that he didn't even realize he was standing right next to, and had been on a ship sailing across the dang ocean after kicking the shit out of Nazis.
At that time, the black soldiers didn't have free reign of the ship. They were cordoned off in certain areas. So he didn't have an opportunity to go and see,
I got you. Okay.
But he was in with the people who were in his company, and that's the only people he could see.
Fucking there.
Yeah. So gets off the ship in Oakland, and his brother's there, and they pull their money together, and they send for as many people as they can afford to send to bring to California from Mississippi.
How awesome is that? So hold on a second. So your brother, or your father and his brother, your uncle.
Yeah.
After having realized they were on the same damn boat coming back from the war, they get off in Oakland, And the first thing they do is they figure out how can they bring more of their family out here.
Right.
Because they realize immediately that Oakland is better than Mississippi.
Yes.
They just step off the boat and they're like, better.
Yep.
Okay.
So
that's amazing.
It was kind of a circuitous route. So a lot of people, they went up. I don't know what road.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I got to stop you.
Yes.
My ignorance needs you to explain circuitous.
Okay, circuitous.
I feel like an unsafe route.
It's a winding route. It's not a direct route. So
okay, beautiful.
Like
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The family went from Mississippi up basically the Mississippi River by trains and buses to Chicago. Some of them stayed in Chicago. A lot of my family, then they went to like Michigan through Detroit.
I mean, this is like a journey. This is not like you hop on a plane and away you go and you tap on your iPhone for a bit and then bam, you're in Oakland.
Remember, this was the 40s.
Fucking A.
This was the 40s.
Sorry, I'm 10 minutes in, but fucking A.
So Chicago, a lot of them stopped in Chicago. Some of them stayed in Chicago.
When they went on the train ride, do they were they able to like actually buy a ticket and get on the train, or did they have to like jump on a train?
So this is where the story gets a little fuzzy.
Mm.
Somehow my dad and my uncle were able to get money to somebody in Mississippi. Wire, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. They got money to people in Mississippi, and they put like 50, 60 people on a train heading north.
Okay.
Safest route was to follow the Mississippi River to go to Chicago, because there was a lot of black people in Chicago on the south side, and it was safe. Chicago was a safe place versus just heading west. Stopped in Chicago, and then up into Michigan, Detroit, Lansing area. And I have a lot of family up in Michigan.
Okay.
Some of them stayed. Some of them were like, hey, this is pretty cool. We're going to stay here.
And they just dropped anchor in Michigan.
Dropped anchor. So
just like the dropped anchor in Chicago or whatever. Some said, no, we're not going to go out west.
The biggest portion of them then headed from Michigan on down to Oakland.
Again, I mean, because that's so wild. You're going north to then go back east to then go west.
Right.
All like on the train, right?
This was like 1947, 1948, 1949. I mean, it wasn't really safe.
No, I mean, that's a perilous journey for black folks back then, right? I mean, dude.
Yeah, so then they get to Oakland and put down roots, and that's where my dad met my mom and my uncles. And I mean, I got like tons of family in the Bay Area. And then from there, they all kind of spread out. So in 76, my family moved to Portland. I was like 2.5, 3 years old.
Right.
We were in that wave of California.
So you were born down in the Bay Area, right? You were born in Oakland.
Yes. I was actually born at the same hospital as Kamala Harris.
All right, sweet. That's great. Yeah, right on. So at 2 years old, young Jamal and his family made the move to Portland. Right.
And then a lot of the family went, and then some of the other family went to Southern California, and then Las Vegas. A lot of them went to Las Vegas.
Okay.
And then we moved up to Portland with 5 of my dad's brothers and sisters, or 6 of my dad's brothers and sisters moved to Portland.
What was the draw to come here?
I think it was just like everybody else, all the Californians moving to Oregon. It was cheap.
That was long before that gold rush. I mean,
that was like the first or second wave.
Dude, that was like, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, because you're talking about before. Wow. So I'm just curious what the draw was to leave LA, or not LA even. Sorry, Oakland. What was the draw to leave Oakland?
So my older brother, who's 11 years older than me, was going to 8th grade high school. And Oakland wasn't that safe. My dad was not in the Black Panthers, but was affiliated with the Black Panthers back then in the 60s and 70s. He had a meat company, him and my brother, my Uncle Mook, they had a meat company where they would drive from Oakland to Los Angeles in their meat truck. However, they never took any meat in the truck.
Whatever did they take in the truck?
They were running guns for the Black Panthers.
All right.
In the meat truck.
Ah.
So
I love it.
Yeah. So then we moved to Portland, and that's kind of how I ended up in Portland. Got to Portland, parents bought a house, and lived in that house from 1976 until my dad passed away in 2009. So,
Right. So when your folks came here, and from all I've learned of late, Portland is, because we love our irony here, it was one of the most segregated towns in the country. Right.
First that's how my parents ended up in North Portland, because that was the only place that they could buy a house. It was in
like literally and legally, it was the only place they could buy a house.
Right. Yep.
And now that house is like the center of
Hipsterville.
I was going to say urban renewal.
There you go. I love that. Oh, you got the buzzwords working tonight. Urban renewal.
Well, and you know what? Since we're there, and I know that we try to be structured, but fuck it, I like freeform. And we mentioned the word of gentrification before, and what that means, and I know that I'm ignorant and even going this route with it, but as a suburban white kid raised in the 70s and 80s, my first reaction before I became more knowledgeable of it was that gentrification just essentially meant certain people are supposed to live certain places. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that idea. To me, that's a very anti-American idea. And I know that, here's the thing. I can be naive as a damn Boy Scout. And because I got swept up in the ideals that I got beat in the head with when I was a kid in the Boy Scouts and all the other things of, we're the greatest. We go to the moon. Mm-hmm. We beat Nazis. We've done all, when I grew up, we were nothing but just the best. We ended slavery. All these awesome things that we've done, So, it's just nothing but, we were on this was our trajectory. You know what I mean? And that has just taken a beating ever since then, that idea. And so just kind of, but the gentrification of certain folks are supposed to live certain places. And I know that's a simplistic and way of looking at it. And it's not it's not really the proper way of looking at it. That's not what I realize that. And I realize where the idea came from, but I guess where I bristle at is where a bunch of young, hip white kids are going to talk to me about gentrification as they're living they never leave 39th, anywhere past 39th Avenue.
Right.
They don't go past there.
Right.
There's more diversity in my neighborhood in the burbs than I would ever see if I went back down to my old apartment on 39th or 30th and Ankeny.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if I went down to Southeast, I'm guessing most folks are pasty white. Mm-hmm. Whereas in my neighborhood out in the burbs, it is a rainbow.
Yeah.
It just is. Yeah. It is a veritable rainbow.
And the reason it is because Portland got so damn expensive.
Because gentrification, because
Exactly.
all the rich white folks moved into town and said, oh, I love this sweet Craftsman house. I'll pay you $1 million for it. Okay. And
Yeah.
either the property owner, whoever that property owner was, whether they were the actual people living there or whether they were just a person renting to somebody. And that is the downside of and I understand that's where because the people that were renting get the boot. And then where do they move? They move to the suburbs.
Or
Vancouver. Because that's what I'm saying, which is a suburb of Portland. Let's just throw that out there. They like to think they're not the Couve. You are. You wouldn't exist without Portland. So, but that's where all the displaced folks moved.
Let me tell you this. So growing up, my parents owned our house, right? A lot of the folks, you remember coming to my old house, a lot of the folks that lived on my neighborhood, they didn't own that house. They rented.
For sure.
They lived there for 20 years, and they rented that house for 20 years. Never owned it.
So what do you say?
When the boom hit and everybody decided they wanted to move to North Portland, those landlords raised those rents so astronomically high that those people had to move. So you rent a house for 20 years, what do you have? Nothing.
You have no equity. And and I was about to say, shame on those folks for not trying to invest in a property, but that was a thing. They were renting because they couldn't own property anywhere.
Right.
They weren't even allowed to, for God's sake. I mean, again, here's me being all starry-eyed about America, the beautiful and the great, and we're just amazing. And at the same very moment, people can't even own property in certain areas. And it's so, I mean, that's the fundamental.
The banks wouldn't give them a loan to buy in certain areas.
And that right there is those are the cornerstones, the building blocks of all of the, privileges, the white privileges that folks reference, because that fundamental disadvantage, I mean, that's everything. You can't even move. You can't even go try to own a house. You have no other choice but to try to rent something because you can't go anywhere else. So you cannot build any equity. You can't own any land. Right. I mean, you're at an absolute disadvantage from the start.
Right. Yep.
And then folks wonder why, oh gosh, these welfare queens. I mean, and then at the same time, let's go ahead and give a few billion to a bunch of fucking farmers. Right. I mean, to not grow anything. I mean, we're gonna pay you not to grow anything. Here's a check. Like the one, what was a saying I heard was, the best way for a farmer to double his income was to put in another mailbox so they could get another check.
Get another check, yeah.
Yep. But again, those are the first folks that are going to talk about, all those welfare queens in the city need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps like I did. Right. Like you did what? Yeah. You got your granddaddy's farm that you inherited.
Right.
And that you've been riding the subsidies ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when you lived out in St. John's. I mean, St. John's has always been kind of a melting pot. Right?
Yep.
I mean, for a while there, St. John's was legitimately dangerous. Like, legitimately dangerous. Like, I grew up on
for real. I mean, for sure.
I grew up on Kirby, right? Kirby has its own history.
Man, I'm just going to tell the folks here. Yeah. I'm going to share a story, if I may. Sorry to cut you off.
Please do.
I felt like I've been good so far. So the first time that I went to my friend Jamal's house, he says, "Follow me." And when I don't stop, you don't stop. At the stoplights, at the stop signs, just make sure you ain't going to get hit and then keep going. And I was like, whatever are you talking about? And so I followed my friend Jamal to his house one late night after work. And again, keep in mind, I mean, we got off work at midnight.
Got off work at midnight.
Well, 12:30, right? Because the store shut at 12 o'clock.
We had to,
Everybody had to count out. We had to stand around with our dick in our hand for a little bit, and then away we went. And that was the beginning of our near nightly ritual of one of us was actually working till 12:30, and the other one showed up in the parking lot at 12:30 to say, "Hey, what's going on?
What do we get to do?"
Yeah, and let's go play some NHL." And so that was the life for a while.
Sure was.
But the very first night that I went to your crib, that was the kind of, quick little scenario that you gave me. I was like, all right, fine, whatever you say. Sure. So away we went. And on my motorcycle I rode, and I followed my friend Jamal to his house. And I recall specifically trying to cross Vancouver Avenue.
Yes.
There's a stop sign there because Vancouver Avenue is a street. There's a big street that is the cross street. So you got to stop. Although you really shouldn't, because there's some fellows on the corner.
Right.
And I did stop because I'm a good motorcyclist and I want to be safe. And so I stop and I hear, "Hey, man, come here." And I look over and there's just some guys there. And I'm like, this is what he was talking about. Yeah. So I left and then I went around the corner, and it was literally like around the corner and there's your house.
Yeah.
I was like that close to safety or just horrible doom. I don't think that would have ended well.
Probably not. Well, once you got onto my street, if my dad could see you were safe.
You were good.
So everybody knew old man Harvey was crazy.
Right?
Everybody knew my dad was crazy. Everybody knew my dad was in the Army. And everybody knew that my dad would shoot you. Like,
yeah.
Like my dad would
I know this. That after that hair-raising experience on the corner and then turning the corner and literally going just not even a full block, and there I was at your house, and I hadn't met your old man yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, Jamal was not lying about don't stop, but okay, fine. We're inside, we're all happy. And I don't think I even met your old man that night. But after I did, and I remember you telling me specifically, I'm going to just go ahead and tell this story.
Mm-hmm.
About your old man hearing a noise of somebody trying to steal your lawnmower.
Yes.
In the alley.
Yes, in the alley.
And then kaboom, kaboom, kaboom.
Well, the best part of the story was he forgot he had painted the window shut. So he was trying to lift the window up to shoot at the guy stealing the lawnmower. But he forgot he painted the window shut. So he broke the window with the gun and then shot out the window at the crackhead trying to steal the lawnmower and cut his arm. And I have never seen a crackhead scale a fence so fast. Dude ran out of his shoes and out of his pants running down the alley. It was just a few things like that happened that like people just decided we're not going to bother this house. Like this house here, we're just going to leave it alone because
I always felt like, once I made it to your house,
yeah,
that I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Even standing out front of your house,
yeah,
I was okay.
Oh, everybody knew. Don't mess with old man Harvey. They knew.
I mean, and I do remember that specifically because, like, of course, folks would see me and there would be maybe some tension, but then, like, I would get like the "oh, hello" from either your mom or your old man or yourself or your brother, and then it was okay. And it was not just okay at that moment. It was okay forever after that.
Right.
For anybody that I recognized that may have lived around there.
Right. You kind of had the James Harvey seal of approval.
Yeah, but man, help you if you leave that block. Can't help you there.
Here's the deal. If you go down there right now, you would not recognize it, dude. There's a
Oh shit,
ramen shop like
man,
6 blocks from my mom's old house. I mean,
man.
it's crazy. Like,
Progress and stuff, right?
I mean, some people call it progress. People who got moved out of their house probably wouldn't call it progress, you know. And
But you know what, folks? I mean, I mean, folks that were in the good, they were in the fortunate enough position to own their property. I mean, they had to have done well,
yeah,
which is super for them.
yeah,
All the folks that got aced out and had to try to move out because their landlord got paid. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole issue we talked about, and that's also part of what's made the suburbs. Like when I was a kid growing up out here, it was pretty pasty uniformly.
yeah.
It is much more of a rainbow now, which I think is great, of course.
Mhm.
What I think is ironic is, all the young folks that don't leave the 39th Avenue radius that want to chide me about how out of touch or whatever I am. And I'm like, man.
Well, here's the thing that people may not know. Like, you're in the club. You're part of the team. Like, you've been through some stuff. You've seen some stuff. Like, people don't realize, like, Joe is down. Like, Joe is like,
But even personal, I mean, aside from the personal aspect of it, but just the demographics of the suburbs versus the
oh
inner
yeah,
city.
Gresham is
The
completely different than it was back in the day. Fairview, that
dude,
whole
like I
area.
say, I mean, there is more diversity in the suburbs than you could ever hope to find in Portland. There just is. I don't
Mm-hmm.
give a shit. I mean, and especially if you're talking about like the fun the hip neighborhoods.
Right,
Hip just means all the white kids.
right,
It
yeah,
just it fucking is. If you go down there, I mean, even like when I lived down there, I mean, it was the edgy hip part of town.
right.
But even then, the edgy hip part of town just meant like all the fucking just drugged out white people.
Right.
I mean,
Well, remember this.
so I,
Remember when we lived on 29th and what street was that?
Alberta
Sumner?
or off Alberta.
Right off Alberta.
Yeah.
I remember we were walking down the street,
The Arts District.
Arts District. We
Mm.
were walking down the street and we went to the burrito place and we went to the ice cream shop and we were walking down there and there was like an art gallery. And I
Yep.
remember telling you, like, dude, I thought I'd never see something like this. Like, this was the shooting gallery back in the day. Like, this was like crack road. And
Which,
like now, and then it was just like there's just like a taco truck. And I'm like, what's a taco truck doing on Alberta? Like, what world are we living in? Like, this is not supposed to be happening.
well, I mean, and I mean, and in what world are people feeling good enough? I mean, and that's the thing. With the gentrification comes, you know, okay, we're not gonna, you know, suddenly the police give a shit about the neighborhood, you know.
Right.
Um,
That's it. 100%. Because back when I was coming up, Kirby and Fremont,
oh man, come
the
on.
only time the police showed up was when there was some mess going on or they were there to harass somebody. Now,
Right?
Officer Friendly's walking down the street.
Oh, trying to make sure they nobody starts some shit. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. When I
No,
was
well,
trying to come home from work at night, I couldn't find somebody to help me.
oh no, and that's I've talked about with friends the idea that Portland is almost like a stopover city for Frisco people. That
Mhm.
Frisco people use Portland houses as like their weekend house
Mm-hmm.
because I mean they've got so much ridiculous money down there that like they almost commute between Portland and Frisco,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, I mean that I mean that's a big contributor to I mean some of the ridiculous prices in this town, and that's such a weird just this town is such a weird disconnect between itself of, I mean, we don't really have a lot of things to offer here for anybody, yet everybody wants to live here as far as, I don't know, hip kids or whatever. But the price of everything is just, through the roof. But it's, I mean, we have like PhD baristas.
Right. So when I realized Portland was weird, and growing up, so Reed College, all right, Reed College. Growing up, never really knew anything about Reed College. Never really knew any Reed people. I didn't start meeting Reed people. And if you're watching this and you're ever been to Portland or live in Portland, and I say Reed people, you know what the hell I'm talking about. It wasn't until we started working at the law firm that I kind of got introduced to Reed people and started hanging out over by Reed College. And I'm like,
am I in the world?
Like I've been that whole area is something completely different.
Well, it's almost like, it's a university district, I mean,
but it's more than a university district. I think, at least back then, back in the late 90s, it had its own identity. Like in Charlotte, we have UNCC, University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And there's, we actually have a part of the city that's called the University District, but it still feels like you're in Charlotte. Back then, when you went over to Reed College, you weren't really in Portland. You were, I don't know where you were.
You were a Reed.
There was different rules. There was different traditions.
Man, I remember being at like Lewis and Clark campus, which is nearby.
Yeah.
Right. It's not Reed campus, but it's not too far from it.
Right. Fair.
And like, I was just like with some friends at the time, and we were, I don't know why we were on campus. And like, suddenly there was like a candlelight vigil walking by of like all these college people. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And they're like, oh, don't worry about that, man. That's just, cause like, seriously, like I went to community college. So, I didn't experience the on-campus lifestyle of people learning about themselves and shit.
Yeah.
And, I get it. I see the appeal. I kind of, I wish I was able to have taken part in such a thing and to be so removed from, I mean, you're literally removed from the entire world.
Yes.
And you're on campus.
Yes.
Which I think is beautiful. I think it's great. I think everybody should have that opportunity, because even if it's just for a couple of years, it improves your mind. Critical thinking is a beautiful thing. And I think that's one of the things that I believe current administrations try to exploit is ignorance. And they want to keep people ignorant because stupid people are easy to control.
Absolutely. 100%.
Smart people are more difficult to keep in line.
Smart people ask questions.
Yeah, and they don't like that. So
Right.
Stupid people are really easy to control. And that's, to me, anybody that's against everybody being educated, you got to wonder why. Because chances are that very person is an educated person.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And less educated people are easier to program by slogans.
Well, it's like, why are you okay with like
make America great again?
For sure. But just, why are some people so okay with, I got mine, but fuck you? I got mine. I got my education. I went to university. But no, not you. Not for everybody else.
I think certain people are greedy. Very, very greedy. And they're tribalistic. And,
yes.
And
but I also believe, like we've mentioned before, that the amount of effort that's being put out to make us so divisive and so tribalistic, I mean, that is a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, constant barrage on every known possible medium to spread that divisive message. And I firmly believe if there was even just a reprieve from that constant barrage, let alone a reverse of that and a message of any kind of unity and positivity, that goddamn folks would suddenly be licking each other if it wasn't for the Rona.
Well, remember, the last time we had that was September the 12th, September the 13th, September the 14th. Remember? It was like kumbaya. Everybody was singing the same.
Well, and I think that's also the opportunity that was missed both in 2008 after that recession and in this COVID pandemic. I firmly thought that it was going to be nothing but kumbaya and masks and people giving virtual hugs, and it was going to be such a unifying moment. And I really thought that the current administration would just grab that and sail with it. And suddenly that they would easily take advantage of the mess that they literally created, because they literally created this pandemic, I firmly believe, by fucking up and getting rid of the pandemic response team ahead of time that was supposed to be there, so it never even got to this point.
I mean, you're not lying.
I'm just saying. But they could have literally taken advantage of the very shitstorm they created and said, "Oh, let's all get together and wear masks and beat this pandemic, and let's all sing songs together about how we're going to fucking lock it down and we're going to beat it together and we're going to come out the other side a stronger America just in time for the elections, and you're all going to vote for me." How do you fuck that up? I mean, but of course you do, because that's what this is all about right now. Is just let's just keep shooting ourselves right in the dick over and over again.
It's the us versus them mentality, and it's destroying the country. So I was never really a big George Bush fan. Like, I just wasn't, we don't even.
No argument there.
But 9/11, I was like, you know what? This dude is president. He's speaking a message of unity. Let's get on board.
Yeah, right. I mean, by comparison, he seems like the most eloquent son of a bitch out there.
God, absolutely. 100%. And, I'm like, okay.
We just keep lowering that bar.
I'm like, his family's done some really evil things over the years. But as of this time, like, he's at Yankee Stadium. He's got a flag. He's like, let's beat these terrorists. Now, looking back on it, there's a whole lot of stuff that we didn't know. And Dick Cheney was pulling these strings behind the scenes that we didn't know at the time that we know now. But at the time, it was like America, and I was like, hey, I'm jumping on board. Like, hey, these guys attacked our country. We didn't know we were getting into this fighting an idea of terrorism versus actually fighting an enemy. But I digress.
That was the first thing I thought of. That was the first thing that ran through my head when I saw that shit happen. I was like, "Oh shit, what's this? That looks nuts." And then within like a few days, it was suddenly Patriot Act, like you said. Suddenly, boom, we've got this huge 9,000-page booklet we just happen to have in our back pocket.
Right.
And I was like, "Whoa, this seems a little bit bullshitty." My bullshitter was going off.
Yeah. And like I said before,
crazy.
How is it even physically possible to put together the Patriot Act in the amount of time they put it together if that thing wasn't 3/4 of the way done? But just to be transparent.
Okay, fine.
Just to be honest and transparent, I jumped on board. I jumped 100% on board. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't use any critical.
Really? You didn't. You weren't just like, what the fuck?
Well, remember.
Not even a little bit. You weren't like, come on.
Initially, I jumped on board. I was all
wow.
I was, and then later.
I believe it. Okay.
Later on, I'm just being honest. I'm not.
And I love hearing it because it's just looking back. Like, I remember my initial skepticism. And so it's interesting hearing a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
I jumped on board, and I remember this was so funny. People watching this now, like the internet was not like a big thing back then. Like now, you can
And you
Google.
were an early user.
I was an early. Hey, I was one of the first.
I remember
One,
being in the basement on sorry, I know I interrupt too much. I
you're
apologize.
good.
But I remember being in the basement across from fucking Sandwiches, and
Yeah.
you were like, watch this, and it was like a message board, and you like type to somebody, and then they type back. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, what
Yeah.
happened there? And you're like, yeah, there's other people out there. I was like, oh my god.
The good old AOL chat rooms. No, dude, I was one of the first 100,000 people in the world with a Gmail account.
Wow.
I
Okay.
got an invite. Yeah. So one of the
Nice.
first 100,000 people in the world with a Gmail account.
You
That's how I got
were
my first and last name without any numbers or
yeah,
extra
right.
characters. But no, man, I jumped all in, and it wasn't until a few months later that I started asking questions. So there's a guy, I won't say his name,
Mm.
but he was an investigator with us at the law firm, and
Okay.
he was of Middle Eastern descent. I think you remember him.
Keep going.
He worked in the juvenile department.
No, well, I mean, you don't have to be too specific, but keep going.
And he was, I believe he was Palestinian.
Okay.
And he started talking to me about what it really meant and what it meant for his people of his shade of skin color and people who spoke his native language and how that translated to us. And I'm like, no, wait, what? 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 And then I started doing some research into 9/11 and Building 7 and all this stuff and the Patriot Act. And then I remember going to the courthouse and they had a copy of the 9/11, not the 9/11 report, but the Patriot Act.
Okay.
And I remember reading some of it and I'm like, wait a minute, they can do this and they can do this. And there was all this stuff in there that was completely unrelated to getting on an airplane and taking off your shoes.
No,
It
I
was
mean,
like,
as soon
bam,
as I realized, as soon as I realized the thing, and we mentioned this before, but the thing that stuck out for me from that era, from that moment, was the president has the ability to name anybody a terrorist. And once you're named a terrorist, you lose all rights and you can be disappeared.
yes,
The end.
yes.
And it's only taken about 20 years for that to look like, oh, maybe we should have looked at that a little harder.
Right.
Because
Right.
I think that suddenly, that could be that it hasn't been. Again, I recall Obama. I listened to so little of Obama's speeches because he was just so good at running the country. I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't even have to tune in because it was in good hands, like it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this shit show that we're all freaking out about every goddamn moment of every day of our lives. But that's what it's turned into. But back before then, before it was this circus shit storm that we have now, it was a grown adult that was educated and competent and could actually run shit.
That he had, or that he inherited.
And he ran shit properly. Oh my God. But even at that time, there were issues with there was, everybody and their mama got a drone strike, and you're like, well,
yeah,
maybe you want to rein that in a little bit,
Right.
but I could see the draw of it. You're like, well, we don't want to risk about our own people, so we'll just send in the drone. And you're like, well, okay, but the whole point of sending in your own people is that you go, this is some real shit, and this must be serious because we're going to risk our own people.
Right.
But when you remove your own people from the equation, suddenly you're like, go ahead. Whatever.
Shoot this person, drop this bomb here.
You don't have any, you've literally got no skin in the game.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where all that was heading, but as far as like how much we've the difference it was made after the whole that was the biggest thing I picked up on with the Patriot Act. I mean, even what they name this shit, I mean, it's all out of Orwell. It's like, oh my god, it's like they literally use Idiocracy and Orwell as manuals
Mm-hmm.
for how things are supposed to be run.
Yes.
And you're like, damn,
Well, and not only that, you could be named a terrorist, but they can go into your bank account. They can go into your internet history.
dude, you
I mean,
lose all rights.
there's all these things that like this has nothing to do. So I was completely naive back then. I'm like, all right, I'll take off my shoes when I get on a plane, and blah 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 this and blah 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 that. And then I realized like all the stuff that was in there that had nothing to do with what they had originally told us. And it kind of felt like a setup. Like they needed something in order to pass all this stuff. Now, am I willing
I
to
believe
go?
that's called the Reichstag fire.
Yeah. Am I willing to go far enough to say that it was a setup on behalf of the US? I'm not quite willing to go that far.
Okay.
Now, here's the deal. 10 years before 9/11, who was bankrolling Osama bin Laden? We were,
Sure.
right?
Reagan with all those Taliban dudes in the White
Yeah,
House.
exactly. I
Right.
mean, so theoretically, Osama bin Laden was a operative of the U.S. government. We
Who was
were
it?
paying him to try to beat the Russians.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, shit. What was it? Rambo 5, I believe, with
yeah,
uh, Sly Stallone in the Afghani desert fighting the Russians
yeah,
on
yeah,
on behalf of the same people that we were calling fucking terrorists. I mean,
right.
sure.
So, I mean, there's lines to be drawn there, and I mean, we were paying bin Laden, right? We were giving him weapons, we were giving him money, and the whole time he was calling us an infidel behind our backs, but we were trying to beat the Russians. So we helped build Al Qaeda, and that didn't. What did the kids say? That didn't age well,
Nice.
right? Um. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not willing to walk out on the plank and say
We just
9/11 was
always need. All we needed was a boogeyman,
right.
and it's the
I'm not
same.
willing to say 9/11 was an inside job, but the country or the government or whomever needed a catalyst to get these things through. And whether coincidentally or fortunately or unfortunately, 9/11 came along, and all
Yep.
of a sudden this huge $9,000 page bill with all this stuff that some of these neocons have been licking their chops for 20 years to get in, all of a sudden got in.
And we've been dealing with that and living under that ever since. And what I thought it was almost comical at the time, like surely everybody sees through this bullshit like I do. Nope.
No,
Or
and like I said, I'm being honest. I was like, let's go, let's do it. I don't mind taking off my shoes for this or that. And it wasn't until people who had actually read it and people who had felt it, either personally or through members of their family or their home country, were like, this is a crock of crap. What's going
I
on?
mean, as soon as I read that part of the powers that gave the president to name anybody, and it was anybody, a U.S. citizen could be named a terrorist, disappeared, no rights, the end, and that is still in effect today. And somehow nobody gives a shit, and we're all just like, that's cool, that seems reasonable, that seems pretty American.
Well, dude, here's the thing though, and this is the thing that like you gotta like really research and look into it. And sometimes when I'm looking at stuff like this online, I'm fearing that someone's gonna come knock on my door
Yeah, right.
because if you look into it, it wasn't just light-skinned brown people that they were putting on planes and sending to Guantanamo Bay and taking to Eastern Germany and torturing in prisons. It was American citizens, right? they were plucking off the street of, call it Omaha, Nebraska, and all of a sudden they're in Cuba. There was people from all these different countries all around the world that under the banner of terrorism, all of a sudden, I mean, you've heard about these planes that just flew around the world, and as long as they stayed above a certain height, they were international, and they could question these people on these planes, and they would land at these black prisons. I mean, it was, you start talking about this stuff.
That sounds about right.
You start researching it, and you're kind of like, I realize anytime I type into my Google machine, somebody is tracking me. And if I keep searching this long enough, someone's going to want to know why.
And that's where the ideals meet up with reality, I guess. While I don't think that even if we get a new administration in this election, all that's still going to be in place.
It absolutely is. I mean, at this point, why would any administration, regardless of the administration, roll back those powers?
Well, I would like to think they have the good interest of the American public in mind, but like I said, I was raised to be naive as shit. I was raised to believe that everything is all fine. And it wasn't until I got older and started, realizing that wasn't the case, little bits at a time, that a lot of ideals sound really nice. And I'm realizing more and more that nobody plays by the rules.
No.
And so we'll see. I mean, what's coming up in the next few weeks is going to be the biggest case of playing by the rules and whether or not that matters.
I'd like to, I don't know. Oh, and we're back.
Yeah, we're back, and I have a feeling this may go a little bit longer than the usual 2-hour joint, but
I'm having.
Let me check my schedule. I'm free. Okay. So.
I have a little fruit punch. Malibu rum.
Oh, what do you call that? You're a professional.
It's a little banana liqueur and coconut rum and fruit punch. There's a name for it. I had it when I was
banana liqueur.
Yeah.
Well, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. It's a little exotic. Brought it back from Mexico.
What's up with that? So is that like distilled bananas?
Well, you use it when you make banana daiquiris.
Okay.
And it's just a liqueur that's banana flavored. It's really sweet, so you don't use a whole lot of it.
I got you.
You put it basically in a pina colada, and it turns it into a banana daiquiri.
And I just want to go on record, please, as noting that we're not digressing from your fucking story. We're just talking drinks real quick.
You started this down.
I know. So I've got more of like the bitter kind of. I don't know what flavor tequila is. I say bitter because of the lime, really.
Yeah. Tequila's an interesting.
But they're from what I understand, a tequila, because like the kind of like there's some that taste more like black pepper.
Yes.
That taste like a lot like black pepper, and like there's one that's got like a deer on it. I think it's called. I can't remember what it's called. But I know that it's behind the counter at the liquor store. And it's not even expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even expensive, but it is the one that people will take. So anyway, as I sip on my, I don't know if it's bitter or salty or whatever the hell that flavor is. Continue from Tahoe.
Okay.
With love.
So,
or at least with handcuffs.
Couple different ways we can go on this.
Now, let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and Allow me, please.
Yes.
Because this is going to be all you for a moment. So I'm just going to let folks know where we left off, just in case they missed that episode. It's possible, I know. So Jamal finds himself in handcuffs and handcuffed to a fence, if I understand it correctly.
Well, you're giving away the punchline.
This is what I understand so far. So
Okay.
whatever. This is like a Tarantino movie. You get the punchline first, and then you get the joke.
Ooh, Pulp Fiction. Look at you, Mr. Reservoir Dogs. I like it.
Ah, dude. Forget about
All
it.
right.
So you're handcuffed to a fence in Tahoe.
Reno.
What led you there?
All right. So we have to go back to 1997? No. 1999.
I was gonna say, yeah, okay.
All right. Was going through a divorce.
Yep.
You know, whatever. Got the ex-wife. You remember the ex-wife. You were there. Going through a divorce, was at a really low point. And I really wasn't. I just thought I was at a really low point. And a couple buddies who I'd kind of met were like, man, let's just go to Reno. Let's just go get in this poker tournament. I'm like, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go to Reno. And you remember back in the day, flights were cheap. You could fly to Vegas for $99 round trip. You could fly to Reno
Okay, right.
for $69 round trip. So we would go to Reno all the time. We'd go to Reno, $69 round trip. We'd rent a car, and we would never get a hotel. We would always get there and gamble and win enough money to get a hotel.
You were that consistently good at winning. So these were several trips then.
Yes.
More than one trip.
Hold on a second now. We slept in the car more nights than we didn't. Let's just put that out there. 3 dudes sleeping in a car. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, was one of these guys like a redheaded Irish fellow from a record store?
Quite possibly.
Jesus Christ. Please continue.
Okay. So this particular trip. Well, see, here's the thing. All right. Disclaimer, folks. This was 20-something years ago.
Yeah, fine.
Very different person.
Qualify it all you want, motherfucker, but
It was a very different person. So the goal.
that's a very different person.
So if I'm being honest, the goal was get to the destination,
Yep.
gamble, find some friends who would put us up in their hotel room, some ladies. That was the goal.
Got you.
So we each had a goal of not only gambling, but find a place to stay. Right? And for whatever reason, I was better at finding us a place to stay than the other guys were. So this particular evening, we're in Reno. And there's 2 stories, so I got to kind of make sure I separate them because they're both kind of crazy. We get to Reno, we start playing poker, we start winning. And when I say winning, I'm not talking about a lot of money. I mean, I'm up $800, right?
Okay.
Which back then, still, if somebody walked in and handed me $800, I'd take
No,
that.
I mean, $800 is $800.
I'm up $800 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a not a bachelor party, but a bachelorette party. And there was this girl, couple of them, who obviously had never been to the state of Nevada because they didn't realize that if you were gambling, you got free drinks. So I'm ordering drinks for their table where they're playing the slot machine. I'm like, hey, get them around, put it on my tab, you know. And the waitress is looking at me, rolling her eyes like, okay, here we go. The girls didn't realize that the drinks were free. They thought I was some high roller.
Nice. I see you working it. Good.
So I'm like, yeah, put that on my tab, get them whatever they want, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Playing. So, um, this is terrible. So I'm talking to this girl, and she's cool, and she's like, "Hey, we're here on a bachelorette party, and we have a suite at the hotel." I'm like, "Suite? Ding, 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 ding." I'm like, "Dudes, we are in. We're sleeping in a suite tonight." So, hanging out with this girl, buying her drinks, whatever.
By the way, may I just cut in here? Like, you don't necessarily care. Correct me here if I'm wrong. You're more interested in a place to sleep than necessarily banging. Is that accurate?
I was tired of sleeping in a car.
So that's accurate.
Dudes, yes.
Okay. So please continue.
Okay. So the girl's friend, not the bride, but like the maid of honor, was like highly skeptical of me and kept giving me the evil eye all night.
Yeah,
but the
okay.
girl I was talking to was like digging me. She was all in, hook, line, and sinker. She was like, "Oh my God, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And we all had kind of code names, so we didn't use our real names.
Sure.
So we had code names.
Were you wearing hockey jerseys?
At the time, no.
Just curious.
So we go back to this suite, and it's like at the 35th floor of the was it the Cal Neva? I can't remember. It was either the Cal Neva or the other one. There was two big hotels in Reno. I think it might have been the Cal Neva. The Cal Neva is the other story where I got carried out of the bar. And
stick to one crazy ass shit at a time, man. Because come on, you're blowing my mind. Because
yeah,
folks, you got to keep in mind, like all I know up to this point is Tame Jamal, is domesticated Jamal.
What am I, a cat now?
It's similar, because I knew you post whatever you were in high school.
Yeah.
Granted, our record store days were
epic.
Hey, come on! I mean, that was some fun stuff.
Yeah. So you missed the whole Harvey's harem part. You missed that.
See, that was before that was back in your high school days, right?
Yeah, Harvey's harem was back in my high school days.
Listen to you. So, I mean, we've got many chapters of your life to get into.
It's like an onion. Just peel it back.
It's like something.
All right, so let me finish. All right. So we are at
by the way, in all these stories, there's also one, where you pick me up.
Yes.
From more than one place at a time. But anyway.
Yeah. We had to go. Hey, it went back and forth. There was no judgment. It was, dude, I need you to come get me. No questions asked. Pick somebody up, and it was all good. The explanation was not necessary.
Man.
All right. So, chilling with this girl.
In Vegas.
I'm like 26, maybe.
Quick recap.
Yeah.
Newly divorced. Heading to Vegas with
Reno,
rather.
The Vegas story is different.
With a fellow, if I'm correct, would bet you on whether or not the sun will come up.
Yes.
In Vegas, with some nothing but upstanding ladies.
They actually were.
I'm sure they were great. I'm sure they were terrific. And so
the girl I'm talking to was like, she was all about me. Like everything I was telling her, all the stories I was telling her, which may or may not have been true, she was buying it. Yeah. Hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. So she's like, "Oh my God, you guys are so cool. Let's hang out. Let's go back. We've got a fully stocked bar at the suite." And I'm like, "Let's go." Music. So we cash out and we go back to the room. And, I told her, I'm like, "Hey, we're staying at the other end of the strip." Like, she's like, "Oh, no. This suite was awesome. It was 2 stories. Mm-hmm. It like somebody's daddy paid for this suite. It had like 3 or 4 bedrooms. It was like Pimp Daddy marble. Big view of the city. And she's like, oh, no, there's couches to crash on. And I'm like, sweet. And I told my boys, I'm like, look, we got a place to stay. We are good to go. So we get back to the suite, and we're hanging out. And her two friends kept giving me the stink eye all night. And it's getting late. And so everybody starts to kind of go to their own separate places. And, you know, I'm playing the role. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to.
Was it like the Love Shack? Was it?
Not
Was
really.
it just like everybody's gonna go pass out right now?
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Okay.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm kind of tired. I'm gonna go lay on the couch over here. And she was like, oh no, you're coming in my room. I'm like, no. She's like, pulls me in the room, and my friends were like, okay. I'm like, all right, y'all, see you later. So I go in the room with her, and everything's all good. Wake up the next morning, and I walk out into the main area. And those two fools are gone.
And by the way, you know, I mean, not that we're trying to get, you know, X-rated. But, I mean, we did just glance past like 9 hours worth of material there. But that's fine. That's fine. I'm glad it was all good.
Yeah.
And so the next day... You wake up, there's, what is it? I mean, does the room just smell like piss and other stuff?
Hey, let's not bring R. Kelly into this, all right? So I get up the next morning.
Irish redheads a bone out.
Dude, gone. Right.
By the way, but this whole time, I don't give a fuck. Fuck it. Only because this whole time I've been like, should I? It'll sound simple. Like, I don't give a fuck. So like this whole time, like, not that I like Vegas, because Vegas is horrible. And maybe that's why. But I feel like I almost feel like I missed out on something, but at the same time, it sounds horrible. And so I don't feel like I missed out on anything at all. So you see that everybody's gone, which, by the way, you know damn well I'd have never ghosted. I never go.
Yes.
But anyway,
you never leave a man behind.
No, well, unless you're a fucking drunk Irishman that fucking will bet on whether or not the sun will come up.
You go, you knock on the door. Hey, dude, we got to roll. Come on.
Right? But whatever.
You know.
But whatever. Hey, I mean, I recall a time, and this is back in the record store days. Actually, this would be the bookstore day.
The bookstore day, yes.
I'm pretty sure you were still there, but there's a time I forgot my wallet. And, man. But anyhow, continue.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Hey, it took a second to hit you, and then you remembered. Anyhow.
That was a fiasco. Wow.
We're not talking about me.
I've forgotten about that.
We're not talking about me.
Dude, here's the deal. I bet you have never let your wallet 2 feet from you in the rest of your life, have you? You probably have a chain on your wallet after that. Oh, wow. You're like, where's my... No. I'm like, no, you did. You're like, yes, I did. Like,
yeah. But we're not talking about me.
No. You almost had to get a new identity.
About Jamal in Vegas.
You almost had to get a new identity. And just
we're talking about Jamal in Vegas.
All right. So,
shit.
Get up the next day, and I walk out, and I'm looking around, and the girl who had been giving me the stink eye the whole time was like, your friends left. And
so she was unsatisfied.
No, the friend, not the girl I was talking to.
No, I would no. I assumed the girl you would. Of course, she was satisfied.
Yeah. And
I'm saying
the friend, the friend wanted nothing to do with any of us. The friend wanted nothing to do with any of us. She didn't want us to come back to the room.
So the Irish redhead charm, no effect on her.
Nothing. Neither one of those guys. So she was like, your friends left, and it's probably time for you to go also. I'm like, all right, time to go.
Well, at that point, why you stick around? I mean, you're already done.
So here's the deal. This is back before cell phones. I had a pager, but this
1-800-MIX-A-LOT.
Dude, this was 97, maybe 98, right?
By the way, sorry, I know. Did you ever call 1-800-MIX-A-LOT?
Absolutely. I keep those nasty thoughts. So the girl I was talking to, I gave her my fake name.
What was your fake name?
And I don't even remember. It was one of my cousins or something. And I gave her my my fake phone number, which my cousin and I had an agreement that if someone called and asked for the fake name, you would play the role.
Oh, wow.
Right? We had an agreement.
Not only an agreement, you had like an actual, like a scenario where.
Yes, you would play the role.
Which,
So I gave her my phone number. She was like, "Oh, let's keep in touch." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Sure, absolutely. Here's the phone number." Gave her the cousin's phone number. Gave her the fake pager number. And remember, my boys and I, we had slept in the car the night before, so we didn't have a hotel. So I had no idea where these guys were.
Wandering about Vegas.
They were in the car, and I had to go and find them. And I'm just like, I had to go and find a payphone so I could call their pager and have them call the payphone back so I could answer. Because remember, the payphones used to have the phone number on them.
Yeah, for sure.
You put the quarter in, you call the pager, you put the number of the payphone, and then you stand there by the payphone, you wait for it to ring. Kids these days know nothing about the struggle.
Oh no! Why aren't you texting me? Yeah.
So, this girl was a psycho. Apparently, as I'm leaving the hotel, she calls my pager number.
Okay.
And then calls my phone number in Portland that I gave her, which was not really my phone number. My cousin
number.
Answered.
Right.
And forgot.
Right.
He forgets. So I'm walking down the street, and the next thing I know, here comes the girl's friend and another girl, the ones that were giving me the stink eye, chasing me down the street.
And whatever were they saying?
Yelling the fake name that I'd given the girl because they knew the real name. Get back here. I can't believe you lied to our friend. So they're chasing me down. I've always been a big guy. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning in Reno, and it's already 80 degrees and hot.
Yeah.
So I run for about a block before that's all I got. I got a block, right? I got a block. I've been up all night. I've been drinking.
Your football coach would be disappointed.
Fair. So I run about a block, maybe a block and a half, and I stop. And they're
You're running from some ladies.
Yes. Run about a block and a half, and that's all I got. And they're confronting me. The next thing I know, this girl punches me square in the jaw, and I'm like in shock. Like, what? Like, I'm not gonna hit a girl. She grabs my arm and puts me in a chicken wing behind my back. I thought,
how are you letting this happen? How are you letting this happen?
I wasn't going to hit him.
You are. I know you're not trying to hit him, but you're massive.
It happened.
I mean, all you have to do is say, "No, bitch."
It happened so fast. She grabbed my arm and like
kung fu twist.
No, this will all make sense in a minute.
Okay, of course.
My arm goes numb. She puts me in a chicken wing, and she puts her knee in my back and puts me on the ground.
Is this like Ronda Rousey or some shit?
And they both start kicking me in the ribs, kicking me in the face, and they're just beating the snot out of me, right? She still has my arm in the chicken wing while the other girl's like kicking me. And they're just calling me every name in the book. And they want to know my real name, and they want to see my ID. And then the girl whips out some handcuffs and handcuffs me. And then the other girl grabs me and they throw me down and they handcuff me behind my back to the fence.
How? Come on, man. Wait. I've been patient. This is official come on man time. I mean, you are a person that I have been along with as we have like taken people into physical custody. How on earth?
You don't expect it from this girl who's like 5 foot nothing.
Yes, I don't.
Right? It happened so fast. She swung and she hit me in the face, and I was stunned. I'm like, what happened? And the next thing I know, she grabs my arm, she hits some pressure point, my arm goes completely numb. Just 100%.
You ran into like fucking Kill Bill. You ran into Uma Thurman.
Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. So she handcuffs me to the fence. They're kicking me and they're screaming at me.
Are you fighting back at all, or are you just like covering up? Like
I'm covering up. I'm like,
yeah, because I understand. You can't like just because one smack. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, if you would just so much of like try to clear yourself from the chaos, you would be sending hose flying.
Right.
And that would not look good. And that would not look good.
No, not at all.
Just like in sports, it's always the second player. It's always the reaction. Absolutely. Right?
So I'm sitting there in this open lot, handcuffed to a fence, bleeding from the mouth.
As you do.
Bleeding from the nose, having trouble breathing. I just got my ass whooped. I just ran a block. A whole block. So I'm sitting there, handcuffed.
This is before you smoke.
And I'm pondering life at this moment. It's one of those moments where, like, you're like, how did I end up here? Like, what bad choices did I make that I find myself in this predicament?
Yeah.
So
wait. Where did the fine ladies go at this point?
Oh, they left. They left me.
They just beat your ass and left.
Yes, left me handcuffed and walked off. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of pondering life. The next thing I know, a cop car pulls up. And
before the cop car pulls up, as you're sitting there pondering life, handcuffed to a fence, after being beaten by some females.
Yes.
In all that pondering, did you think to yourself, in all the times I hung out with Joe, did this ever happen?
Well, if you had been there, this never would have happened because you wouldn't have left me in the hotel.
Excuse me for a second. Please continue.
All right. So the cop car pulls up. The two cops get out and they walk over to me and they go, "Hey man, do you need some help?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm just fine." And they are just laughing and they are like, "This is why we love being a police officer in Reno, because I'm sure there's a story and I'm sure we're not going to believe you." And I'm like, all right. So I tell them the story and they're just dying laughing. They're like, "You got beat up by a girl?" And so I'm telling them, and I'm like, "Can I press charges?" And they're like, "We're not pressing charges. Are you kidding me?" So they undo the handcuffs, and they had a little bit of trouble getting me out of the handcuffs. So they finally get me out of the handcuffs, and the guy goes, "Man, can I keep these?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why?" And he showed me the insignia on it, United States of America, Federal Bureau of Investigations. He goes, "You got beat up by an FBI agent, a special agent." The girl that beat me up was a special agent, and she left her like service-issued handcuffs.
Wow. All because you nailed her friend.
Yeah. Gave her a fake name, gave her a fake number. Yeah. Yeah. So I let the dude keep them. And yeah, he was like, "These are like FBI." He's like, "These are like good handcuffs. Can I keep them?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I don't want them. What am I going to do with them?" So he was like, I could find out who the FBI agent was. I'm like, I don't ever want to see her again.
Yeah, right.
So he puts me in the back of the cop car and he goes, "What hotel are you staying at?" And I'm like, I'm not staying at a hotel. We were sleeping in the car until we met those girls, and they put us up in the hotel. And these guys are just laughing, and they're on the radio, and they're telling everybody about it. And I'm sitting in the back of the cop car, bloody, dirty, embarrassed. And I'm like, they're like, well, what kind of car are you in? I'm like, we were in a rental car. I think it was a Toyota. And they're like, oh, there's not 100,000 Toyotas in this town. So they're driving me around. And after about 20 minutes, we see the car parked outside of a restaurant.
No.
And he goes, wait here. And he's like, I'm going to go in and see if your friends are in there. So I'm not sure what he says to my friends, but they come out, and I'm sitting in the back of the car, and they're like,
so who is it at this point? Is this your the ladies, or is this?
No, the ladies are long gone. I've never seen them.
So this is Irish Gambler and Associates.
Yes.
Yes.
So they come out, and I'm telling them what happened, and the cops are just dying laughing. And by this time, 2 other cars pulled up because they wanted to see me and see what happened. And the cop is telling me, he's like, it happens. This is Reno. It's all good. And he's like, he was like, here's the moral of the story. And I'm like, all right. He goes, you actually won this situation. I'm like, how did I win this situation? He goes, those girls still don't know your real name or your real phone number. And I'm like, I'm a winner. Yes, I'm a winner. But yeah, man, that's how I
good to see you, right side.
I got beat up by an FBI agent and handcuffed to a fence.
So it's probably good you didn't swing back, like extra good.
She probably had a gun and probably would have shot me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And, while I initially want to, my initial response, of course, is, come on. How did you not just go, just bitch, get off me, but I understand. That's a delicate situation. Because
and I like to think that I'm a moral person for the most part, and I knew I was in the wrong. And I knew that.
Why were you in the wrong?
Kind of deceived this girl from the time I met her.
It's good of you to admit it.
20 years, 25 years will give you a little bit of perspective. And at the time, I was mad at the dude that I was with, and I was mad at my cousin. And then because he didn't play along.
Oh, God, got you. Well, he was caught off guard. He was probably just sitting there fucking chilling, eating some cereal, fucking watching a cartoon or some shit, and then he gets a phone call, and he's like, hello, this is Steve.
We had practiced this.
Man, come on. I think that's a big ask of your cousin, and I don't even know the guy, but I'm saying that's probably a big ask of him.
And then I was wondering why this girl was such a psycho, and I'm 5 minutes outside of the hotel room. Why is she calling me?
Man. Well.
Why? Answer that.
Because you fucking answer that. Because you got caught up in some hoes. Fucking what do you expect?
She was calling to, I guess she told my cousin she was calling to leave a message to say, hey, I was thinking about you. I just left the room.
Man, I drove through Tahoe. I stopped for like 10 minutes. And then I kept going. So my story is not going to be near as elaborate as yours. And you made some choices there, which, we could really stop and we could talk about. But in the end, you were a grown adult, you're a grown man, and you made some choices in Tahoe, and that's what Tahoe is for. Is to make. So,
do you want to hear about the last time I went to Reno?
Maybe.
Because there was a time after this.
Okay. How long after this?
2 or 3 months after this. So it was when the divorce was final. And
celebrating?
Yeah, you could say so.
I think I am saying that.
All right. So do you remember the second time my ex-wife tried to kill me?
Man, come on.
You remember the first time she pushed me down the cliff?
Why don't you let everybody know about that time then?
See, this is when we had kind of grown apart at that time, and I was mixed up. So she pushed me down the cliff. I didn't die. Then she tried to kill me. Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely some gaps in our relationship, I'd say.
Skyline Boulevard.
I'm a fan of.
Yes,
rode my motorcycle on it many times.
I slid down probably 50 feet, grabbed onto a tree, didn't die. It's hard to kill a Harvey. That's what my dad told me.
I don't know if this will offend you. I'm sorry if it does. You can reach out and punch me later. She was nasty.
I didn't figure that out.
She was mean and just not nice.
I didn't figure that out until it was too late. I was young.
And I couldn't tell you because, you can't tell a friend shit like that,
I was young.
Nor could you you couldn't have told me either.
Right. So divorce was final. I'd gotten over the second attempt on my life. Bank account had been cleaned out.
Well, we went over the first one, which was apparently pushing you down a cliff on Skyline.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can go into that actual event, or you can expound and talk about the second event, which I have no idea of.
The second one was I wake up with like 4 pillows on my head and her sitting on the pillows and simultaneously trying to choke me. So that was the second attempt. So luckily I'm a cat. Like you said earlier, I got 7 more, so I'm good.
Damn.
Yeah. So that was when that night I left and I called a guy who had a truck and came and helped me move. That's when I moved into the apartment on Ash Street.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that's when we kind of reconnected. Anyways, yeah. All right. So divorce was final. Right. And I was like, finally got everything settled and got some of that money back that had been stolen from the bank. And I'm like, man, I need to get out of town. I just need to get away for a couple of days. So I didn't have enough money to get a flight. So I went down to Union Station. And there were no trains leaving at the time. But the guy said, hey, if you go over to the Greyhound station, you can get a bus.
Man.
So this was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And there was 2 buses leaving Portland. One was going to Denver and one was going to Reno. And it was like 18 inches of snow in Denver. So I said, screw it. I got on the Greyhound bus, 1-way ticket to Reno.
That's like some Kerouac shit. I mean, that's real. That's right on.
And I tell you, if you've never been on a Greyhound bus for a day and a half, don't do it.
The closest I came was riding the Amtrak from Minneapolis to Portland.
I think I remember that.
You might have picked me up at the fucking...
Yeah, I think I remember that.
I'm pretty sure you picked me up at the train station.
You were coming from Apple Valley. I remember that.
Fucking hell.
See, I can drop in little nuggets. Yeah, you were coming from Apple Valley.
Yeah, you did. You did pick me up at the train station, man. I mean, while it was no Greyhound, I visited the smoking car, and I'm pretty sure I got cancer.
Oh boy!
That was. I mean, because back then I smoked cigarettes, and I sorry to interrupt your story, but I brought with me a Captain Morgan for the train ride from Minneapolis to Portland, and I was like, okay, this will get me through. And somewhere in North Dakota or some shit, some kid got on. and sat next to me. And he was young, and he was by himself, and he's like 12. And I was like, man, I'm going to sit here and drink in front of this kid. Oh, well.
Yeah, right.
And so I drank in front of that kid. And, I mean, he was nice, and I don't know what the hell ever happened to him. But I visited the smoking room, the smoking car.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember opening that door and walking in. And, I mean, immediately it was like, okay, I'm seriously like a piece of leather now.
Right.
But the folks that were sitting in there, I mean, like, honestly, it was brutal. So, like, you go, I mean, you couldn't even stand in there for like 5 minutes. You know, it was like, you're just going to die.
Right.
But, like, the train would stop, like, along the way. And everybody would pile off for some fresh air. And looking back on that now, I mean, that sounds like the goddamn Old West. I mean,
right.
you know what I'm saying? And then everybody would pile back on. Yeah, and then choo-choo, you know, the whistle would blow, everybody would pile back on that was leaving, and away you would go. And it was 34 hours.
Oh, brutal.
I do not recommend.
Well, I'll tell you this. Back in the day, I don't know if it's still there, the Greyhound bus station in Sacramento, California was literally on Skid Row. Like, it pulled up to Skid Row. And, I mean, we've seen some stuff
Yep.
in life. But I don't think I'd ever seen so many, like, open hand-to-hand transactions that I saw in that one day. Like,
when people just don't care.
no.
Yeah.
So I get to Reno.
Yeah.
Spent a day and a half on the Greyhound bus.
Mm.
I think my back is still messed up from sleeping in that on the bus. But we get to Reno, and I get in a cab, right? A cab. And it takes me to a hotel off the strip. And like, okay, so remember like the old 70s hotels that like have like the concrete staircase with the metal railings that go up, and
Yep.
you know the style I'm talking about?
Sure.
So I go up there and I check in and I get into the room, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna go get a drink. So I go to Cal Neva, get back in the cab, go to Cal Neva, and I go into the sports bar, and there's these guys in there, and I'm just kind of drinking by myself, and they're like, hey man, what's going on? I'm like, just got divorced. And they're like, me too. Yeah. It's like third time for me. And I'm like, all right. So these guys start like ordering wild turkey. I've never drinking wild turkey in my life before that, and I will never drink wild turkey again, ever. I don't know if you've ever drinking wild turkey. Don't do it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, not probably if you drank that much of it to where it cured you.
Oh, God. All right. So the last thing I remember is this guy buys a shot and he gives a toast, and I take a shot of wild turkey, and I remember falling backwards in my chair.
Just kept going.
I don't remember hitting the ground.
Nice.
I wake up, and I'm in my hotel room the next morning. And I don't know if you've ever woken up and you're like, takes you a minute, like.
Waking up in the same position?
Well, no, you're looking around and you're like, where am I?
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, okay, I'm in a hotel room. I open up the drawer. I pull out the phone book. And it says Reno, Nevada. I'm like, okay, all right, it's coming back to me. It's coming back to me. Right?
Wild for a while.
Right? And so I'm like, damn.
Jamal gone wild.
I'm like, I don't remember how I got here. So I walk downstairs to the front desk, and the guy waves me down, and he's like, hey, man, are you okay? Thought you were dead.
Damn, man.
I thought you were dead. He goes, last night about 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 guys carried you up the stairs, and they asked me to let you in because they couldn't find the key in your pocket. So I let them in. I'm like, right? So I go back up to the room. and my wallet and everything is there, and there's a note that was like, hey, man, you had kind of a rough night. We put you to bed. So I start piecing it all together. I had just met these guys that night. I don't remember telling them where I stayed because I didn't remember where I stayed. I was just at some hotel. I didn't know the room number, nothing. So I get in a cab and I go back to Cal Neva and I've got the note and I walk into Cal Neva and like 3 dudes come to the door. No, you are not allowed in here. I'm like, what? They're like, no, you are never allowed in our casino or our hotel again. Get out. And I'm like,
what did you do?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know. So they wouldn't let me in. All I can think of were these 2 dudes were my guardian angels. Somehow they figured I must have passed out. I had to. I don't know what I did. They figured out where I was staying, what room I was in, and they.
I mean, did those guys didn't roll you? I mean, did they looked out for you like that? You know, I mean, honestly, because like all we hear is like how terrible the world is.
Yeah, but I mean, and the guy at the front desk of the hotel was like, "Man, I see lots of crazy stuff, and I thought you were dead when they were carrying you up the stairs." I'm like, I'm a big dude. Like 2 guys carried me up a flight of stairs. Like
you had a couple of fellas looking out for you, and I'm glad they did.
And I would love to know who these guys are. Now, I've told you 2 of the tamer stories.
Okay.
There are some more stories in the state of Nevada that are not so tame, but we can talk about that another time.
And I gotta say, son, I'm disappointed. I mean, you saved all the good shit. I mean,
part of the time,
all the time that we hung out, I was the one doing stupid shit.
Part of the time,
suddenly you like said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go Jamal Gone Wild."
No, part of the time you were in Minnesota.
See any of that, and at least I get to hear about it now.
You were in Minnesota for part of this time.
Ew.
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
I mean, we can't, whatever.
Yeah, part of that time you were out of state.
Hey, well, we all had to, grow and,
There it is.
We're all growing in our own.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, because, at the same time you were doing all that, I was winding up on random people's couches in Minnesota and shit. So, or
Apple Valley.
Yeah, no, I got thrown out of there. Yeah, they said get out.
Yeah.
I mean, and you think, like they talk about like all the stats, like it's technically safer now than it was back then. Yet, I mean, we felt good enough to be wild as fuck. I mean, and people wonder why all the young folks are out there not giving a shit about Corona.
Right, I know.
I mean, honestly, would we have given a shit about it?
Yeah.
Maybe. Not like I do with, now that I got kids, I'm like, fucking, I'm locked down like fucking.
Hey, I'd rather be locked down than to be in Reno with broken ribs, bleeding from my mouth and nose with cops laughing at me.
What a good story.
Sometimes when I breathe deep, my ribs still hurt a little bit, like 25 years later, like no joke.
But my elbow still hurts from shit I did at the mall. So, I mean, whatever, man. I mean, that's life.
But here's the deal. That girl, she's got to be my age. She might have been a few years younger. Who knows? She's been telling that story for 20 years and laughing her tail off about how she whooped some guy down for deceiving her friend.
And let's be honest. Her friend may have been deceived, but she was pleased.
Her friend didn't come chasing after me.
That's what I'm saying, right? Her friend wasn't complaining.
No.
All
right, buy or sell.
Yep.
Celebrities as endorsers for political campaigns. Buy or sell?
I mean, whatever gets the message across, I suppose. Yeah, I don't see why I shouldn't listen to what they have to say, and if somebody wants to hire them to promote their message, and so be it.
Would that swing your vote? Let's talk about Ice Cube. Does that swing your vote in any way?
Well, I mean, like we talked about before, and before we get to Cube, and honestly, we could have made this whole damn show about Cube, but then we wouldn't have heard about Reno. So, if you aren't decided by now, I honestly don't know what to say to you. I really do not. I mean, if you look at everything that's been done over the last 4 years, and you're like, I mean, I don't know what the hell to say to you. I mean, I just don't. So,
well, I think it comes down to this: if
as far as Cube,
if mid-October, if Ice Cube sways your decision to vote for one candidate or the other,
then you weren't there to be swayed anyway. You were going to vote however you were going to vote. So whatever. Right. As far as whatever the hell Cube is up to, man,
I'm at a loss for words, man.
Please explain.
I don't.
I believe there's a term I've seen on the internet called white splaining it. So I don't want to do that. So, what's going on there?
I watched the video, and quite honestly, I mean, I've been listening to Ice Cube for 30 years.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yep.
And he's always been the most militant out of all of them, with the afro and the fist. For sure. And, kill the Koreans and, all this. Farrakhan, right? He rolled with Farrakhan for 15 years, and this, the only thing I can think of is somebody gave him a whole bunch of money to say what he said, because I don't know the man, right? I know his music. I follow him on Twitter. Right. I don't know what's in his heart. But this is a complete departure from everything that he's ever said.
Let's stop there for a second. So, I mean, I like his music too and all, but I don't follow his tweets and shit. But I mean, there's maybe something where that's a little bit more of an insight to a person's personal views. I mean, their music, yes, of course, but also if they tweet stuff, I assume that's their views on the world. The Twitter. So if all of his stuff on the Twitter has been leading up to this point, I don't know. I haven't followed him at all, and so I don't know. But if you have, is this the logical outcome of all the stuff that Ice Cube has been about up till now?
Unless he's been playing the long con, no. Like, I don't like.
And what is that long con then? If he has, I mean, what is that? What is that big game that he's playing?
I honestly don't see anything that I've believed up to this point that he represents that Donald Trump simultaneously represents. Aside from the fact that Ice Cube has a whole lot of money, he's done really well for himself, and he's a rich guy.
Which are all great things, and
he's not in the Donald Trump rich guy club, but he's richer than me. And
I would go so far as to say he's probably got more actual cash money than Donald fucking Trump does.
He might.
He's not. I mean, what? It went from Trump was $400 million in debt to now he's $1 billion in debt.
Right.
Oh, okay, cool. Just throw a few more $100 million on the pile. Like, that's just nothing. I mean, the shit that we talk about in such layman's terms, like, it's just so mundane. Oh, he went from $400 million in debt to $1 billion debt.
Yeah, who cares?
I mean, the stuff we get used to.
I honestly don't know what to make of the whole Ice Cube thing. Like I'm at a loss for words. Complete loss for words.
I mean, I've heard that he's saying, "Oh well, Trump has been the only one to commit to this some plan for a black agenda," and I can't help but go, "Are you really naive enough to think that Trump is going to follow through with something that he promises? That he's not just blowing smoke up your ass?"
And what is the last 4 years? What has he done in the last 4 years to lead you to believe that this would be the case? And for him to throw out to say that he's the best person for African Americans since Abraham Lincoln, like that's just
he said that.
Trump said that. Yes, Trump said that.
Oh, okay. Trump said that. Okay, Trump. If Trump said that, fucking whatever. I thought Cube said that.
No. Trump said it. So I mean, the buy or sell is celebrities as endorsers for political campaigns. I mean, I think people that are easily swayed by Kanye or Alicia Keys or Ice Cube, I don't necessarily look to sports and entertainment people for my politics. I like to kind of come up with my own. And I think that the people who are swayed by that are probably the people you were talking about at the top of the show, who are easily controlled.
Yeah, for sure.
And may not be highly educated. I don't know, man. It's.
But here's the thing, though. I'm not highly educated either. I'm not.
Well, when I say I don't mean book smart. I don't mean book smart.
No, but I don't mean that either. But I'm just saying I don't hold any degrees. So why is it that I can see through this bullshit, but other people are not able to?
I don't know, man. That's the million.
I don't understand that because, like I said, I'm not a fucking bachelor or master's or I don't have that. But I feel like, I mean, I just don't understand how people can be so caught up in such obvious BS. Other than it sings to whatever song they want to sing of, oh, he's saying whatever I want to hear. So
right.
I just will look past everything else. Then, okay, I guess that makes enough sense. But I don't understand how educated people.
Right.
I mean, either educated,
thoughtful people, not necessarily educated people, just thoughtful people, people with.
Yeah, and I mean, and Ice Cube is somebody who I always. Ice Cube is somebody I always identified as somebody like myself that was not very highly educated, but was very kind of wise to the world. Mm-hmm. I thought, but then this comes out of left field, and I mean. The carpet gets yanked from underneath our feet 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And it just, and something like that, you're like, it seems so trivial because you're like, okay, he's just an entertainer, so who gives a shit? But then at the same time, you're like, man, you were supposed to be one of the ones that was reasonable about the world. And suddenly you went to the moon. And what the hell?
It's the same thing with Kanye West. So remember Kanye.
Yeah, but Kanye was always weird as fuck, you know?
Well, remember, he went from George Bush, doesn't like black people, putting on the MAGA hat. And he's flip-flopped 2 or 3 times in between.
That's what I'm saying. Kanye's always been weird as fuck, and everybody goes, oh, that's just Kanye, whatever. But Ice Cube is like the one that's supposed to be the sensible, down-to-earth person.
Yes.
And suddenly he's out of left field, and you're like, okay, now I'm straight confused.
I'm very confused.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to necessarily shed light on that, but I just wanted to get your take on it. Like if you had some light to shed, or
I mean, through his message, Ice Cube, he's still kind of portraying this pro-black message, which is fine, which is whatever. But then to use Donald Trump and say Donald Trump is the one who's backing the pro-black message, I mean, that's like saying I'm gonna ride with the wolf because he's giving me a ride to my house. I don't agree with him because I don't think Donald Trump has a pro anything message other than him and his boys.
For sure, right? It's grift from top to bottom, and if that's all Cuba was saying, it was like, hey, I'm a big fan of making money, and I'm a fan of anybody else that's a fan of making money, and my man Trump is all about making money, and look at him. I mean, if Cube came out and said, my man Trump pimps America like I would pimp America,
yeah,
then I would respect that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'd be like, hey, you're being real. Because you'd be like, hey, you know what? If I was in that same position, I would pimp the shit out of this too. I would fill my pockets, and I wouldn't give a fuck what anybody said.
But that's not what he said.
Because that's what the current administration is acting like.
Right.
But I wouldn't expect a guy like Ice Cube to applaud that. Other than if he's saying, no, I mean, if he's saying, if I can be so bold as to say, game recognized game.
Right. Yeah.
Then okay, fine.
Right.
If he's saying that, get your pimp on and get after it, and I would do the same damn thing if I was in that position.
Right. You could respect him saying that.
Then I would almost respect that, although I go, wow, you're kind of a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is that I always thought he was more of a community person.
Me too.
And from these, and again, this is just my perspective, I don't feel like he's a very community person now. I feel like he's a very, I got mine, fuck all of you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that feels off. And in this world, it's a hard thing to say somebody's a sellout.
Mm-hmm.
But that feels awful sellout.
Just like I texted you earlier, I said I think somebody's paying him, and you responded back, dollar bill, y'all. I mean, yeah. All right. I mean, I've been on record to say Ice Cube has been my favorite rapper, like from childhood.
Dude, this hurts a lot of folks, man.
It hurt. It cuts deep.
Dude,
man.
This is a gut check on some people, man. I mean, that's Ice Cube. I mean,
it's Ice Cube.
I mean, it was one thing, like we've all seen the meme where it was like, at first I was all like this, where he's like him sitting there with Cypress Hill with the AKs in the basement.
Right.
And then I was all like this, and it shows him in the canoe with the fucking life preserver from the Disney movie or whatever the shit.
Right.
And you're like, okay, that's a funny meme, and right. I get it, But hey, you're like, hey, props, you came up. You did well. You went from rapping and making it huge in rapping to being an icon of rap to then transferring that to being on the big screen. Yeah, movie.
He went from a Jerry curl to Anaconda.
Man, that's what I'm saying. And then to do all of that, and then to suddenly pull this. I mean, again, I'm not in I am not a part of the African American community, if anybody was curious about that. But as an outsider looking in, does that sting a little bit?
It stings a lot, man. Like I said, of any rapper in the world, I've told everybody that knows me knows Ice Cube has been my favorite rapper since NWA first came out. Throughout all the trials and tribulations, I have purchased every single album. Not only did I buy them on tape,
and probably like multiple copies, right? Like
tape, bought them on tape, bought CD, them on vinyl, bought
digital,
them on CD,
right?
And downloaded them. And I mean, this hurts, man. This is like, you feel like after you listen to somebody for 20 years, you know them, and that's a fallacy on my part.
It's longer than that.
I don't know the man, but you feel like you know him. You listen to his music, you hear his message, you watch his interviews, you read his newspaper articles, you check in on the Twitter every now and then. And I guess we don't really know anybody celebrity-wise, but you kind of, you know what I mean? You kind of feel like you know the guy a little bit. You know what I mean?
Of all the celebrities, you think that would be one you got kind of pinned down?
Yeah. And then this, and it's just like I saw the video and I was like, what? And I'm like, somebody edited it weird or something. And then you text me and I'm like, I need to go back and watch it again. And I watched it again and I'm just like, you know how you're watching something for the second time and you know what's going to happen and you're going, no. It was like,
wake off.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know if he can come back from that.
I mean, what is the game plan in that?
I don't know. I mean, you said,
what's the long game in that? Like, I hope to get a cabinet position in Trump's fucking White House. I mean, really?
And is he that naive to think that Trump would take him seriously?
That's what I'm saying. Or that Trump would do anything he actually promises. I mean,
I sure hope not.
Hey, I got a small segue, not segue, just change of pace. And I know that we're already over the limit. I don't know when you want to just drop anchor and say stop it, but there's one thing are you familiar with the term or the group called the Proud Boys?
Well, which Proud Boys are you speaking of?
You may be referencing the George Takei version, which is what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Because God bless Sulu. Sulu. So here, I drive through a pretty rural part of town a lot of times, as I like to go recreate in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And on a recent journey back from the woods and through a rural town, I traveled, and there were an ardent group of our current administration supporters. And amongst that group of supporters on the sidewalk, that of course were not being dispersed by the police. I can't imagine why. But amongst that group of several ardent supporters waved a flag that said PB with a big crest. And I've seen that only because I spend too much time on the internet and I'm familiar with what that is. And my immediate reaction with my son in the car was to flip these people off. It's like, I couldn't help it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, shit, I got to calm that down only because my son's in the car. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, and honestly, like if my kid wasn't in the car, I would want to pull over and confront these people. And then what? I don't know. I mean, that would lead to nothing good. But that they feel so emboldened to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we talked about a while back of, should these folks be easily identified? And that's a courtesy to all of the rest of us to say, ooh, stay away from that. Or should these people be stuffed back into their hole? And with violence if necessary. And if they stick their head out of that hole, to stuff them back even further with more violence if needed, so that they never show their pitiful face again.
But this current administration has given them the freedom to stick their heads out. Not only stick their heads out, but to congregate in public.
That's my entire point. That's my entire point, is that while I understand that when they are out in public and they wear their red hats, they're easily identified, and that is nice because you go, hey, there's the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And that is nice. But at the same time, I argue, no. We don't want them to feel emboldened to be out in public.
Agreed.
We don't want them to wave their flag. We don't want them to gather at all. I don't want that. I want them to feel scared to do so. I want them to feel ashamed to even think it.
Can I tell you something? So I know you're not big into Twitter.
No, first of all, here's the thing. A couple points on Twitter. One, who owns Twitter?
I don't know.
I know who owns Twitter.
Who owns
No,
Twitter?
it's no American.
Who owns Twitter?
Look it up. Google that shit right now. Google it right now. Google it right now.
Hold on, let me look.
Here's Jamal as he goes. I got some fucking theme music because I've only been drinking a little bit.
All right. Who owns Twitter? Jack Dorsey is the founder of Twitter. Jack Dorsey, Noah Glass.
That's the founder. Who owns Twitter?
Okay, hold on. Let's see here.
It ain't that guy, I tell you that. And that's part of the issue. Is that when you realize that the people that own that are not from here, they don't have our best interest in mind. And everything that goes on that, when you look at it through the lens of the people that own that do not have our best interest in mind,
right?
Then maybe you go, oh, that's why I fuck Twitter. But at the same time, Twitter is kind of amazing because you have
Elliott Management Corporation has acquired a stake in Twitter with activist shareholder and Republican Party supporter Paul Singer.
That's just a stake in. Who's the majority shareholder?
I'm not seeing it here.
I'm pretty sure it's an offshore person.
Ahmed Khorast, an Iranian businessman.
Oh.
Who has become the executive chairman at Twitter since 2015.
I'm sure he's got our best interest in mind.
Interesting.
So,
what do you know?
With that in mind, fuck Twitter. But no, I mean, Twitter has an amazing upside in that. I mean, take the Portland protests, for example.
Right.
So much of what I have watched and seen has come through Twitter.
Right.
It's people on the ground making a post about, here's some crazy shit that I just saw.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I would like to disparage things like Twitter and Facebook, and I do, you cannot deny what is a video of somebody that says, here is something that is real and I just saw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it used to be, it was these quaint democratic uprisings in these Far East countries. Well,
right.
now it's these quaint democratic uprisings in America.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I despise these platforms, I can't help but applaud them because they allow literally anybody with a phone to be a photojournalist, and people are on the ground with a live link to YouTube or Twitter or wherever.
Yep.
And they are filming stuff that NBC and CBS and CNN, and they ain't picking it up, and some of those feeds are, I mean, that's where the real news is.
Mm-hmm.
And I, while I don't partake, as far as I'm not involved in those platforms, I consume that content through other medium, and I appreciate what it is that they're doing. I mean, a lot of people like to, kind of poo-poo it off and like, oh, that's just some jackass with a phone. I'm like, yeah, it is.
And he's boots on the ground.
And he's every bit as legitimate, if not more, than anybody from CNN or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a dude with a phone, and you can't filter what that is. It's
right.
It's right there. It's right there for you to look at.
Can I just say one thing about the Proud Boys, though, on Twitter? and how proud I am of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
That they completely took over the hashtag Proud Boys from the
And
race.
that was all George Takei. That was all George Takei doing that. Sulu from Star Trek, if anybody isn't familiar.
Took it over, and it was the greatest thing to watch.
It's so beautiful.
It was the greatest thing to watch.
And those dipshits, I mean, honestly, I mean, they just they need to go get laid or something. I mean, obviously, no girl wants any part of them. But guys, I'm putting this out there to all the Proud Boy fellas because I know you might look up to somebody like myself. You know, you're fine. You know, blue-eyed brethren. Get a life. You know, go talk to a girl. And get the hell off the sidewalk with your stupid flag. Because I want to punch the lights out of you every time I see you. You get no sympathy from me. And I like we talked about, and I get that, you know, giving them, you know, making them a beacon so that you know to avoid them. I do understand that is, but man, they have been so encouraged to come out of the woodwork.
You're right.
I do not see that as a good thing. I do not.
I'm with it.
So
but before we end, you want to end it on kind of a lighter note?
Hold on, I wanted to see if there was something fun. I don't know if I have a fun one. I mean, I made even a fun one, but go for it. What do you got? What do you got?
My last two buy or sells, and we can end it here.
Oh, buy or sell. Fuck it. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
All right. Breakfast for dinner, buy or sell?
Oh, hell yes. Man.
You're buying?
Man, I love me some eggs at night with some pancakes and some bacon. Biscuits and gravy. Like there's a place called the Montage here in town. Did you ever go to that joint?
I don't think I have.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? You never went to Montage? Is
that on the east side?
Yeah, underneath the bridge.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I've been there. Yeah. Remember I used to get the Monte Cristo there.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And they had the oyster shooters.
Yeah.
They had there's a lot of wine.
Yes.
Yeah, the community seating.
Yeah.
Family seating, whatever you call it.
Remember my father's place on Grand? It's closed.
Yeah, I mean Delta Cafe. Yeah. I mean, you know, lots of fun joints. I mean, hopefully some of these places will make it through all this.
The Jolly Roger, is that still around?
It might be down there on 7th or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. Like I talk to a lot of folks in my real job and all around the country. And I talked to a fellow recently who was they're in Ohio. They're Amish. So I don't think they'll be listening, so I think I can talk about them. He was like, you know, I don't know what you think about the whole mask thing. You know, but that it's all just everybody's going to get it. The COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, how quick that message gets out.
Right.
You know, of, we're just going to go for herd immunity, although we don't know what that means.
Right.
But we're just going to go for everybody gets it. That's the least amount of effort for everybody. So nobody has to make any kind of sacrifice as far as like wear a mask or change your behavior or not do something or whatever. And some people will die and that's okay. And the rest of us will just get it and live on. And that's literally what this fool was telling me. And he's like, in our community, a bunch of people have gotten it. I'm like, well, right away, we've already just skipped past the whole, it's only going to be in the big cities.
Right. Yeah.
This is an Amish community in
Right.
fucking
That's
like,
about as small town as you get.
right, and it's ran through their community.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, it's killed a few people, but they were all old people with cancer or diabetes or whatever. I'm like, you people are seriously like, literally like just writing folks off like it's nothing.
Wow.
And he goes, well, we can't stop working. I'm like, we ain't stopped working either, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, we're just trying to take precautions to try to, get through this nonsense. And what was difficult, because again, this is a customer, mind you. So I can't really tell him exactly how I feel, but at the same time, I don't know. Well, I'm not in the office anymore. So I don't have to have this censorship in my mind of, I'm in the office, and because like in the office, like I sit between the owner and the other owner.
Right.
And so obviously, that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I sit in my basement, and so when I have conversations, I'm not sitting between the owners. And I mean, I can't go completely off the rails.
Right.
I'm not trying to, but I can be a little freer in how I talk.
Uh-huh.
And at a certain point, I'm just like, come on, man. I mean, stop it. And I was like, it's obviously gotten through the big cities to your small ass community.
Yep.
It's ravaging your small community, it sounds like, because it's killing people.
Right.
And yes, I agree that anybody that dies nowadays is probably being chalked up to a COVID death. Right. I do. But here's the thing, because he was laying this on me of, oh, yeah, the hospital says that anybody that dies now is a COVID death just so they can get paid. I'm like, oh, well, it sounds like you're a big fan of health care for everybody so that hospitals don't make money.
Right.
Just crickets.
Silence.
Just crickets.
Silence.
Oh, yeah. Out. Eject,
Yeah. That didn't go over too well.
Oh, and again, I mean, I try to be as reasonable as I can without, offending folks. But dude, I mean, you just can't talk complete nonsense, and then
you can't.
I gotta respond with a little bit. That's all.
All right. Last buy or sell.
What's up?
Last buy or sell.
Yep.
All right. Buy or sell. Candy corn is the best Halloween snack ever.
Fucking gross. Sorry, fucking.
Seriously?
Candy corn is just so. I bet you love that shit, don't you?
I love candy corn.
I knew you love that shit.
Love candy corn.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Dude, look at this.
You got a fucking bag of that
I just punched a whole thing of pumpkins.
That is nasty.
Right here. Pumpkins. To our executive producer.
I'm grabbing right. I'm grabbing my mic just so I can emphasize how nasty you are.
Pumpkins.
Nasty ass candy corn. Some bullshit.
Pumpkins and candy corn.
Fuck your candy corn.
Put some respect on their name.
Fuck that candy corn.
Can't believe you don't like candy corn.
Hey, come on, man.
Oh, it's the best.
So what are you doing for Halloween?
The wife and I were talking about that.
I think we got one more episode before Halloween, but whatever.
Yeah. Let me get back to you next week. We're completely undecided. I am not.
What's the wife want to do?
She's up in the air. So there's a couple of families that we have dealt with. And we thought about just giving the kids $20 and say, go pick out on Amazon or whatever candy you want. We'll have it delivered and we'll hide it in the backyard and you can go on a, candy hunt or whatever. And we'll get a costume and we'll take some pictures around the house and run around the yard. Something like that.
Yep.
Of course, the kids, being 11 and 7, want to go trick or treating. The 7-year-old doesn't really understand.
You can't give them the option. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean,
the 11-year-old gets it. She's like, we can't go knock on strangers because they might give us candy with Corona on it. And I'm like, yes. Not really, but yes.
Close enough.
Without getting into a whole lot of stuff, that's probably
that's close enough. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, man. We'll figure. My wife's idea is let's rent 4 of the scariest kid-appropriate movies and have a spooky Halloween night and decorate the house and eat candy until everybody passes out. Nice. That's kind of her idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
My oldest, who's 9, has got a stormtrooper outfit that he's been living in.
Mm-hmm.
like he wakes up in the morning and he puts on a stormtrooper outfit, and then he doesn't take it off. And so we're thinking about I want to have these visions, and then I'm like, there's no way I'm doing any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to do something in the backyard, of like a Star Wars adventure where he can put on his outfit and his Nerf gun and run through the backyard and then end up in the garage as that's the treasure or something. I don't know. I've got this grand vision of what that would look like, and it's not going to look like any of that.
Because normally
it's going to be the backyard in the dark.
What we've done pre-COVID was everybody would meet at the pool in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
And we'd all chip in and buy pizza. And we're talking like 50, 60 kids, like damn near.
Wow, how fun.
And then the girls and their friend, when they were littler, we'd have a wagon and we'd pull them all on the wagon and they'd run up to the house and go trick or treat.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a worse idea than to get 50 kids together and their parents.
Well, no, come on. I mean, that's
space. Like
that's a bad idea. That's a really terrible idea.
That's a terrible idea.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying is what a neat event you had for your community that right now you just can't have. I know that people are still trying to do that right now, and that's part of the problem. Like I was talking about with my Amish customer, of like, if this would have, what I told my customer, I was like, just like I tell my children, if you're gonna do something, do it properly, and do it the first time,
right?
And I knew that message would resonate with an Amish person, right? I mean, god dang. If
measure twice, cut once.
God damn, if I could hug you. I mean, that is what Amish people believe in.
Right.
I mean, and so I knew I was nailing him right in the freaking eyeballs with this. That if you're going to do something, and I went so far as to say, it never should have got here in the first place.
Correct.
Everybody seems to forget about that. It never even should have got here. But we dismantled our entire agency responsible for dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when I point that out, the only response is, "Oh."
Mm-hmm.
And but it did get here, and then I was like, our response has been a rudderless ship.
Yes. Completely rudderless ship.
And so
completely rudderless ship.
I don't know. I don't think I was making any friends, but at the same time, I'm not trying to. I'm just tired of catering to fucking imbeciles. I mean, why are we catering to the lowest common denominator? I know we are. I know why we are, because that's who votes, I guess. But it hurts, and it's not doing our country any good.
You know what hurts? You don't like candy corn. That I can't go on. I need a break. I
fuck your candy corn. I said it.
Have you ever had candy corn beer?
Fuck no. I drink liquor. I don't drink beer.
They have candy corn vodka.
And fuck your candy corn. And
They
hell,
have candy corn vodka.
Can I just say to all the folks doing Red Bull and vodka or all this nonsense and vodka, goddamn, can you just drink your damn vodka? Honestly, I'm holding the mic right now because I feel passionately about this. Because here's the thing: respect your liquor. Hey, you don't candy coat that bullshit. Don't Zima that. Respect your liquor. Drink your liquor.
Next week, can we talk about White Claws?
White Claws?
Please research White Claws between now and next week.
Oh, God.
Write that down. Write it down.
Damn it, dude. What the hell?
Write down White Claw.
What are you doing to me?
No. Just write down White Claw.
No, I'm gonna fucking Google it right now. White Claws. Is it like it's spelled like white, like white, like Santa Claus?
Yeah, White Claw.
Like rawr claw?
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's like the Zima.
White Claw flavors is what comes up.
Yes.
Hard seltzer. Jesus Christ! Come on, man. Come on, man. Are we in high school still? Are we drinking Bartles and James 2020 out of the fucking 2 liter? Did you ever have the Bartles and James out of the 2 liter when wine cooler was sold in a 2 liter fucking bottle? Because goddamn, if you couldn't get liquored up out of a 2 liter bottle.
Remember, we had some friends who lived on Zima.
Man,
Remember,
I got fuck that. I got a story. I got a story right now.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I'm gonna end it on a fun story, or maybe we don't end it. Fuck it. I'll get another drink. 2020 Bartles and James used to sell wine coolers in a 2 liter bottle like soda.
Right.
When I was about 14 or so, my neighbor, who was about 21 or so, was kind enough to run to the store, and I would go with him. Shout out, Ma. and while Ma and Dad were at work, paying for our fine house, me and my neighborhood associates would sit around drinking Bartles and James 2020 wine cooler out of the 2 liter bottle. And we decimated the bird population with our BB guns.
Oh, man.
Birds would fly around my house in the air. Like, I am not bullshitting. A robin would fly near my backyard and then go around it.
Like, I know what's going to occur over here.
And the thing is that my old man had like a mulch pile on the side of the house. Lawn clippings and such. And that was a fine place to stash dead birds and empty 2020 2 liter bottles of wine cooler.
Yes.
And then when those empty bottles were found, blame that on my older sister.
Right?
And then they said, well, what about all these dead birds? You bought me a BB gun. What do you want? I mean,
birds fall out of the sky every day.
Don't buy a kid a BB gun is a more or less.
Awesome. All right, that's a great place to end it.
All right, man.
And we will reconvene next week, and I will probably bring some candy corn and eat it live on the air.
Oh, fuck it. Man, and I told my kid about your snack.
Yes.
That would be a good one. If we could do that, because that's right before Halloween.
The problem is I can't get clam dip.
I know you cannot, but we can do it. We can do it for you.
Yes. We
can do it for you, and we can also experience somebody enjoying that experience for the first time.
The next generation.
Generation, and while you won't see his face,
reaction.
You'll get the gist.
Yes.
We'll try to do a live taste test of Jamal's snack for Halloween.
I'm so jealous.
It'll scare all of our digestional systems.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I looked up, and there is a service where I can order some research clam dip, but it would end up being $40.
Oh my God!
Yeah, to get it shipped from Corvallis, Oregon, to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Do it. Shit, we could buy some and just ship it to you. Oh,
that would be easier.
I know this is kind of just segueing into production meeting right now, but we could buy some, ship it to you this week, and we could do Jamal snack for Halloween for next episode.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I think I'm going to work on production on that one. I'm excited. I'm a little drunk, but I'm also excited.
I'm down. You know I'm down.
How long has it been since you had Jamal snack?
Well, I've been in Charlotte 14 years.
Wow. So, I mean, the whole time there, you haven't had it, right?
You ain't get clam dip here.
Ooh. Hey, so if I send this to you, you've got to have your kiddos try it.
Oh, they'll eat anything.
What about the wife? Come on.
Here's the thing.
Come on. Come on. I don't know your wife that well, but I know her well enough. She is a brave woman. She is not scared of some bullshit. Come on now.
All right. If we get skipped here, I'll get the wife to.
Has she changed? She ain't changed.
No,
come on.
She's the same.
Come on. She would try. Has she ever tried the snack? And it's full unadulterated?
No, she hasn't. No. Now that I think about it, she has not tried it.
Look at what you're holding from her.
Can't get clam dip back here.
I'm gonna see if we can help you out.
I have been to store. I even went to like Whole Foods and
I still don't understand why that's a thing. How is clam dip not like a thing there?
I love clam dip. It's the best.
I know. I mean, dude. Well, I mean, you're on the East Coast. I mean, like I said, clam chowder and shit.
Remember, I'm in the South, man. I'm
dude. Remember the size of Oregon?
Yes.
To me, you're all in the same area.
Here's the deal: the Mason-Dixon line is like real.
Yeah, I drove back and forth across that.
It's real. Like you cross that line, and it's like
it's true.
There's a clear divide when you cross the Mason-Dixon.
Do you like living in the South?
You know, Charlotte's a lot like Portland. If I get outside of Charlotte, I'm reminded that I'm in the South. But if I stay in the little area of Charlotte, it's all good.
I got you.
Yeah.
So it's like Portland.
It's like Portland. It's exactly like Portland. You go out to Forest Grove or a little bit further out, and you're in a whole different world. Yeah. So I stay in Charlotte proper, and I'm good. My little suburb, and I'm good. Cool, man. Have a good night. We'll see you next week. Hey, remember, if you're watching to the end, like, comment.
Congratulations, subscribe. By the way.
Congratulations. You heard a lot of good stuff. Still see the mark on my wrist, and my ribs are still broken. If you want to hear more,
and my heart's still broken and being left out of all that. By the way, I mean honestly, I gotta say,
dude, 2 words: Apple Valley.
Man,
I'm just saying,
Apple Valley was not worth missing out on that. I gotta just say, I'm saying that right now. It was not worth it. I'm telling you, like I was the scourge of Apple Valley. If that tells you anything. Jesus Christ.
If you had been in town, you would have been on the trip with me, and I wouldn't have had a great story, but we would have had some other good stories.
It would have been dull because I'm dull.
But that would have been better. I could have.
No, it wouldn't have been better. It would have just been dull.
I lost years off my life.
Yeah, but it was worth it probably.
Oh, man. Not when I was getting kicked in the face.
See, because here's the thing. I'm picturing like Agent Scully doing that to you, and honestly, that's kind of hot.
Looking back on it, I mean,
if you look at it from that, you see what I'm saying. So,
have you ever been kicked in the face?
I got punched in the face at the record store really hard.
Right.
Really hard. That was the hardest I've ever been hit.
See, I can ask this question of most people, and the answer is always no. Have you been kicked in the face while you were handcuffed to a fence? I've never met another person that can say yes to that.
No. But then again, you're the only person I've met that ran into some shit like in a parking lot and knocked themselves out.
It's true. Yeah.
And I still remember looking up and you're like, you look like you just went to the moon. And I'm like, man, I just put this fool through a car window. I need your help. And you were just check the fuck out.
I think that was the one and only time I've ever had a concussion, and that was not fun at all.
I've had several, and they're not so bad. You get used to them.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You had the concussion on the bike.
Man, I've had more than a few. I've had a lot. So
yeah,
that's my disclaimer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were seeing stars, which was fun. I still remember that look on your face. And I remember the look on the other guy's face. And I remember the look on the guy's face that came out from the furniture store and was like, that was awesome. So,
so much of that day, I don't remember. I just remember
that was a crazy day because that was like multiple.
That was like events. That was like the second thing of the third.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. Yeah, that was weird. All right, man. I'm signing off. Long live.
Yep.
See you next week.
Word.
All right, bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.